favor?
Aye.
401.
Okay. So, that's our usual agenda for this evening. Do we have, was anyone in touch with anybody? Can they share their results?
I met with Mr. Holland from the Historic Commission.
What's that last name?
Mulholland,
Mulholland.
M-U-L-H-O-L-A-N-D.
Indeed, yes, very interesting.
I'm sorry, what was it, how can I see?
Historical Commission,
Historical.
and which is different from the Historical Society.
Yes.
Which, but it was very interesting how much the commission, how much she as the chair has a say in the historic district, historical district, et cetera. But really it's sort of a separate body, board, committee, commission, from the governing section, unless you have a historic house or a house in the historic district. You don't really cross them. But it's interesting, but it was interesting. She had a few good suggestions.
What about answers to any specific questions related to the governmental structure, you know, how she felt her board interacting with other boards and town departments?
The building inspector was the big one. And she had a suggestion for making that process a little bit smoother, because the building inspector, somebody would go to the building inspector and say, okay, I want to change the windows of my house, and it's in the historic district, or it's an historic house, it needs to go through the historical commission. And so he directs them to Liz, but there's no application, he doesn't have any access to application, and she felt that would be better, but she could also see the pros and cons of it. You know?
So that's more a board-specific activity where an applicant comes in to do something to their home, it's in the historic district, and then the building inspector says, we need permission from that commission first. Is that basically the interaction?
It's, yes, but then she recognized also that he wasn't knowledgeable in what the historical commission, I mean, he wasn't on the historical commission. So there was that, whose authority, you know, it's the building inspector, so it's best. So she finally sort of said, well, it's probably best that they do call me, because I'm the one who's going to have to say, yes, you do need to fill in an application, you need to do this, you need to do that, we need to come out and check it. So I thought that was her only really big complaint. Other than that, she doesn't really have that much to do with the other boards.
And it's fairly limited because it only applies to that district, which is
Right.
basically downtown
And,
Topsfield, right?
and well, and there's a demolition bylaw that they have to, so that if you wanted to.
That commission's in charge of that bylaw, not the building inspector.
Yeah, it is. So, but I think I can say this, but she liked the way the town government was set up, that the partly elected, partly appointed. She thought it was a fair way of doing it, and her comment was, decision by consensus was the best way to do it.
And she was talking about for her board?
No,
Which
for
is
the
the whole town?
government, yeah, for town.
Anyone else?
No, I see
Okay.
Bob Moriarty tomorrow morning and Len Conan on Friday.
Ron, would you like to take a-
Yes, I spoke with two people. A member of the Alcohol Advisory Committee. That was interesting. They have no authority. They are an advisory committee to selectmen, I think it is. And, you know, they only meet on an as-needed basis. The interview went fairly quickly. He did not have a whole lot of suggestions. I don't have it in front of me, but I think by and large he felt the existing government met the purposes of his advisory committee.
That's very limited then.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
Is their main function basically when there's an application for a license, they advise the selectmen, that's it? Is that their whole function?
Or suggestions in changing the regulations.
Right, that's actually that's correct. That's not insignificant because the state changes its rules, and so they need to make sure our bylaws are up to date. So that's like part of the percentage of their time, but they don't meet more than a handful of times a year, if that. The other person I met with was the moderator, Steve Whalen. Not surprising, very thoughtful answers. Was free to share his thoughts and recommendations, and look forward to sharing them with you all and discussing them with you when the time is right.
Okay,
And I'm supposed to meet with someone else this week, trustee or something. Trust funds, Stratum, is that his last name?
Yes,
Yeah,
first of hand.
someone.
Dave Strong,
Yeah,
trust fund, Dave Strong.
yeah, I've suggested a handful of times, waiting to see what works best for him.
Well, I had a pretty fruitful 2 weeks. I met with 3 people.
you win.
What a prize. I met with Cheryl Jolie from the Conservation Commission. I met with Helen Hunt. Doesn't fly.
That's
The actress?
No,
You didn't invite
not
us?
Helen. I'm doing the wrong name. Kathleen Hunt. I'm going, Helen Hunt, that's not who I met with. Kathleen Hunt from the Cultural Council and Penny Rogers from the COA. Interestingly, all of them felt that the way their board was either appointed or elected, and then even taking into consideration my first interviewee, Martha Morrison, they all felt that if they were elected, should leave it like that. If they were appointed, lots of reasons to leave them appointed. It seems like at least these 4 groups, the Planning, COA, Cultural, and Conservation, all felt that their commission was well structured, that they worked well, that they got the cooperation that they needed from the town, the way it was set up. Every one of them, though, had a little tweak about an additional person we could add to staff that would either make their life easier or would make everyone's life easier.
This is an administrative staff person?
Well, let me think. There was a strong push for an IT person, even part-time. These particular boards either have an administrative person or they're able to handle the administration themselves. They all felt, and some of them had already gotten waivers on term limitations. They felt that in their particular areas, that knowledge and expertise, experience was really important. So some of them had a 6-year rule, some of them, and when they had to abide by that, that caused them problems. If they were able to get some sort of a variance from that, that was really beneficial.
Is it a bylaw that's 6 years? I'm not sure.
Some boards have a legal requirement that the Cultural Council definitely does. It's a 6-year thing, and then Planning Board used to.
We just voted on planning board at last town meeting.
Yeah, you had to resign, you could be on for so long, but then you had to resign, and then you could, for a period of time, then you could be reappointed. And Planning Board of all of them is so knowledge intensive to understand the laws and apply them, and so that I think that they actually got a variance, right? And so that
Or change something.
Change
We voted on
something.
it. It was a bylaw.
There
Yeah.
must be a bylaw,
It
so.
was a bylaw, and we changed it at town meeting last year.
Yeah.
So you would say, you're speaking for these last 3 board chairs that you interviewed, they all felt they were happy with their, stop me if I mischaracterize anything, happy with the structure, whether they were appointed or elected.
Mhm.
They were happy with their interactions with town government, is that correct? Was it like,
They were happy with their interactions with town government.
but they feel as if it would be beneficial for additional staff, that, not necessarily just for them, but there's a need for IT. Is that,
Well, there was definitely IT, we heard that there was definitely a need for IT. The planning board, Martha, felt that we are coming soon to the point when we have to have at least a part-time professional planner. Like, conservation has a professional conservation agent.
it's very common. for-
COA has a director, so, but the planning board is the planning board. There's no professional. They have administrative help through a coordinator who helps with their administrative stuff, but they don't have another planning professional, even if it meant part-time, sharing with another town.
Would that just be for the planning board?
And planning board, board of appeals,
Zoning maybe.
Zoning.
I mean, there may be some additional people this person could serve, or maybe it's just a part-time person. But
what I,
the-
go ahead.
things are becoming more complicated, more technical, and we're getting to a point, this was Martha's opinion, where the chair of the planning board and the chair of the zoning board, both of them incredibly knowledgeable, but how much longer are they going to stay in those positions? Eventually people want to move on.
Right.
And
Or
so
do
then-
something different or retire.
Yeah, and then it takes such a long time to bring someone up to speed.
So what I see is there's frequently a planning department in town. That consists of a planning director, a building inspector, oftentimes there's a town engineer. I'm not saying this is for Topsfield, this isn't really even structural government, this is more personnel.
Yeah,
But there's usually a planning department, and sometimes there's also a board health agent is put in there. And they all work together on anything related to land use and buildings. I'm not saying we're there yet, I don't know that that's something that's even within the scope of our
And
charge.
What's the suggestion we should consider?
well, this is, I don't even think
What do you-
Martha thinks necessarily we're there yet, but she said that's something we should be thinking about and looking towards going forward.
Are you finished? I don't want to interrupt you.
Well, say what you want to say, I think I'm done.
Because I got a suggestion from the chair library board about a maintenance person, someone to take care of the buildings, all the public buildings. And of course, the library director is the one who's there at 3 AM if the
Yeah,
alarm
pumping out
has
the
gone
basement.
off or pumping out the basement, exactly.
Yeah.
And she felt strongly that, she said, who's going to take care of these buildings? All of them, all public buildings.
Yeah.
Now, I said, I will take it as a suggestion, you know, I thought it was a good suggestion.
Who did it come from again?
Gail Bryson, she's
She's
chair.
library?
Library,
Thank
yes.
GAIL, GAMI.
GAI. So, and that also, I heard that from a regular citizen, in no particular position, who said, you know, has anybody ever thought of how we take care of our buildings? And it was suggested that it could be someone who's very knowledgeable in permits and the buildings, who knows about roofing, or, you know, what it takes to maintain HVAC, et cetera. Someone besides like a Jim.
We contract out for those services now, I assume,
For which?
for building maintenance. I mean, each department, like water department has its own building maintenance people, park and cemetery does, highway does, but if the library needed something, it's not done by, we don't have a DPW, so do we contract out for those services?
For example, the library uses ambient technology, ambient air or something like that, to do their HVAC, their heating,
Yeah.
whatever else. Now, if they have a light go out, a lamp or something like that,
That's,
that's not ambient, that's something else. Each of the departments handles things in their own ways.
But I do understand, it's been a long-standing concern. I remember when I was on the personnel board, which was a long time ago, that we would hear from the head of the library, you know, that there's issues there that she didn't really know how to solve or what the solution was, that she'd get calls in the middle of the night to come and do this or that, or basically pumping out the basement and doing all kinds of things. And then we had Roberta Knight here in Town Hall that used to be down in the basement doing stuff,
Yeah.
because we don't have that designated person.
There could be some efficiencies gained potentially if there was one department of public works, everything was standardized, but I don't think that's our charge. We might be able to consider Department of Public Works, but as far as particular personnel, like hiring someone to go change a light bulb, for instance, I don't think that's within our scope. So-
No, that wasn't the issue that Gail brought up, it was really someone to take care of the buildings.
In general,
Yes.
Yeah. And I think,
if you did more than one, it might be
Yeah,
efficient.
I think that the things that we need to find some place to incorporate, even if it's an addendum or something, is the suggestions that people that we have talked to have given for personnel they see would benefit multiple areas, like a part-time IT person, whether, not that we're recommending it, but
Yep.
we're just
So-
putting it out
I
there.
agree with that, and so I think maybe we need to start thinking about compiling a separate list. So we'll have a matrix of sorts for the questions,
Mhm.
and then when we give reports and recommendations, these are the things that we heard frequently from
Mhm,
chairs,
mhm.
these are the things that we heard infrequently, you know, so
Mhm.
if everyone says we need IT, you know,
Mhm.
consider looking into IT. Again, that's personnel more than
Structure,
structural.
yeah.
Oh, yes,
But-
I understand that.
But that's
but
different
it's-
from DPW. DPW, to me, if we're gonna create a new department, that's structural.
Yeah, well, I think, though we might hear things from people, but we didn't ask specifically for that, so we might, a lot of people might think you need an IT person, but they didn't tell you because
True,
it didn't come out directly in the questions.
but I also think that we should suggest it, so it should say, this is what we heard from different people, because we're asking them, and we need to listen to
Yeah,
what they're saying.
absolutely, absolutely.
One of the things, and I need to talk, I talked to two people as well, but one of the things I've been thinking about is the effectiveness of the questions, given the fact that these boards have very specific roles,
Mhm.
and whether or not maybe we need to do something else, or reshape our questions, or do it. You guys familiar with SurveyMonkey at all?
Yeah.
So you can send out a survey to people and ask them to fill it in. And it could be made much more broader than just us talking to the chairs. It's one thing I wanted to bring up tonight.
I'm sorry, so that would be a SurveyMonkey that you're saying, we could ask the same questions to.
We can
for our
ask the same
audience.
questions or refine them,
Yeah, okay.
refine them based on
Okay.
the answer, the response we've been getting, which, you know, I don't really want to reinvent the wheel, but a lot of these questions, based on what you've told me, you know, my experience in my interviews with people, you know, people feel as if a lot of these questions don't apply to them. It's just that they have a very limited role. They don't feel like they need to interact with the departments that much. That was my experience. I think that's consistent with what you guys have.
I think so. I think what I could say I heard is the points of interaction that they have, and everyone has some obviously, that they thought those were working pretty well.
Mhm.
Right. And when you got down to the nitty-gritty questions, more centralization versus less, they all had opinions on that. But in some ways, they were pretty consistent.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I found that, though mine too were, tomorrow I do the zoning, and then on Friday I do assessors, so they may be different, but historical and library, they're pretty separate,
They're
they're on
separate,
their
yeah.
own.
Be interesting to compare zoning with planning.
Well,
But,
I think you'll find, I mean, the assessor's role is very specific, you know, determine taxes and deal with tax abatement type issues, and then you'll find that I think that the Board of Appeals, zoning Board of Appeals, is very specific to permits, zoning, and appeals.
But it's a different nature of their job, the boards, as opposed to the library. Yeah, maybe assessors, because they'll lean on the,
Town administration.
town
So
assessor.
the other thing too is they don't have, like the library has facilities, there's no sort of capital or property that the Board of Assessors is in charge of that I'm aware of, or that the Board of Appeals has to worry about. You know, there's no, I don't think Board of Appeals has any employees. And like you mentioned, the finance department here supports the assessor's office. So, it's just different.
Well, the assessor here supports the Board of Assessors.
Yeah. But
But we'll see what they're, but I thought, I agree with Roberta in the general government, how it was so far, pretty much the same, pretty much, well, we like it the way it is, we like the elected and the appointed.
And I'll just use it as a jumping off point, that's what I heard too. I interviewed the chair of the finance committee, Karen Dow, and the chair of the board of water commissioners, Phil Knowles. And both of them, essentially, when it came to that last question about central versus not centralized, they both recognized the merits of appointed versus elected, and they both thought it went pretty smoothly as it went.
Yeah, I heard
So, Mr. Knowles did say, you know, at one point we didn't consider a centralized Department of Public Works, and maybe that's something we might consider again, but he wasn't necessarily for it or against it. But other than that, he didn't really see any other ideas regarding changes for the organizational structure of the town, so. Just to give you a little bit more color on my conversations was for Karen, Ms. Dow, Dr. Dow, the finance committee's main roles are preparing the budget every year for town meeting, and then also advising town meeting on all the town meeting warrant articles that's going to go before town meeting, and as well as approving reserve fund transfer requests. So, but for the most part, it's setting the budget. That's the finance committee's job. And then the water commissioner's job is also fairly limited to the town's water enterprise. It's a big job to get the town water, but they have their own funds. Town meeting does approve their budget, but it's an enterprise fund, and they're pretty independent. It's not unusual for water commissioners being independently elected officials. So that was basically my experience with them, and neither of them had or could identify any real problems with how the town government currently operates. So.
Interesting, you talked to Phil, and I heard, when we talked about centralized versus non-centralized, I heard from several people, oh, I remember, this is sort of paraphrasing what they said, oh, I remember when we were going to go to a Department of Public Works, and they thought that consolidating those three areas into one made a lot of sense for economy, etc., best use of resources, that. But they also felt that keeping the expertise of the commissioners was important.
Yeah.
So they weren't for, they were for keeping those boards, those separate, and now none of them were on those boards, so I wasn't talking to the Commissioner of Public Works, I was talking to someone very different, who still thought that the expertise that they brought was important.
Interesting.
And that was that's consistent with what I heard from
Yeah.
both of them, especially from Phil. Their board is they have the director of the Cambridge Water Department on their board, which is great.
Yeah.
Phil's been doing this for forever. He's run his construction paving business, so he understands
Yeah,
business and knows logistics.
Yeah.
And they also have Greg Crom, who's been doing this for a while and is
Meticulous. He's
meticulous and handles all the
Yeah.
administrative tasks for them. So You know, it's, I don't know, I've never received any complaints about the water department. Structurally, you know, I haven't received any complaints really from either, I've only interviewed two people now, either person, so. And the only thing that I've heard as a possible recommendation is from Mr. Knowles, and that was related to the coordination of, or consolidation of the public works function to one public works
Okay.
department. And there are potential, Mr. Knowles and I talked about the potential downsides is that, well, you might have to hire a superintendent of public works who gets a large salary. So, you know, you put that much responsibility on someone. So you don't really know financially how that's gonna work out until you look at the
Yeah.
numbers. But again, I don't think that's part of our task to go explore numbers for salaries for DPW superintendents.
No, but I think it's something that this could be a cost, this might not be cost effective or something.
We don't know yet.
But we don't
We don't
know
know,
exactly.
Yeah, yeah. And sort of an aside, if we were ever to, I read one thing that you passed out, what was it, I think it was the change in the form of government for Topsfield, that there was, and I remember this from my own personal experience, that I was on the personnel board, then there was a lot of concern when the talks were about uniting that we were going to downsize or eliminate some positions that were in, some people who were in leadership roles at the time. We've heard, rumor, whatever, that opportunity may be presenting itself where some of the heads of these different departments are getting close to maybe retiring, and that would eliminate that one impediment to bringing them together that people were fearful of.
I think that's correct. I mean, that's what I heard, but I don't know how much of our, I think we should include that in the report.
Yeah.
You know, if this is an opportune time, potentially consider that.
Mhm.
But I don't know if long-term, that's why we would move to more
No, there has
centralized
to
or
be other,
certain structural.
yeah, there has to be other reasons, but there's times to do it and there's times
Yeah,
that they're more
that would,
difficult. Yeah.
if certain key individuals are retiring or moving on, then
Mhm.
It's an
it's
opportunity.
it's an opportunity.
It is an opportunity.
So that was good, thank you. Circling back to the Survey Monkey question. Well, let me take a step back. What did you guys think of the overall effectiveness of this process so far?
Apart from some difficulty in scheduling, and I'm pretty much open anytime, day, night, and it's not that they didn't want to do it, but they had, you have to give people time to work it out, and then they want to see the questions, and I think the questions might be a little overwhelming when you first look at it. And so I've said to them, don't worry, there's, the questions are a lot easier to answer than they look, and
Or take your time.
take your time, and, or if you just want to come in and we'll talk through each question, just to put people totally at ease. And everyone I've had has done it a different way. Some have arrived with things already typed out, and they've talked to the person who is the town employee that services them, and so, you're getting this, and then others have, have felt maybe a little intimidated by it all, well, it doesn't have anything to do with me, etc. But I think that talking face to face with people, that you actually get a much better answer and a more complete answer than if you say yes, no, sometimes, maybe, never, and I think, yeah.
So I agree with all of those comments, and yet, I think that for efficiency, it might be good to have a Survey Monkey for those people for whom scheduling is a challenge.
Opening it up to all board members potentially is what I was thinking. But I was hoping to get some feedback on whether or not we want to do that. And maybe open it up to department as well, but definitely I think all board members. But even then, I can't recall, I think Roberta was one of your board members, chairs, who actually had the discussion with their whole board.
No,
No,
that
it
was.
was yours?
the-
No,
That was mine.
Cheryl.
Oh, it was yours.
Cheryl Knudsen and Board of
Yeah.
Health.
Okay,
Yeah.
so, I mean, I don't know, we could certainly get opinions from everybody, and it might be safest, and SurveyMonkey is basically will compile it for us, which is good. We'll have to refine our questions, I think.
And it would not be anonymous, right? It would still, they'd have to be willing to attach their name to it
I don't know
and
enough
go
about
public.
I don't
and-
know about SurveyMonkey, enough about SurveyMonkey to know whether it can be anonymous or not.
My opinion would be it shouldn't be anonymous. Because if you're opening up to a wide group of people, there could be, maybe I'm way off on left field, but there could be constituencies that wanna see something go one way or the other, but they don't necessarily want their name attached to
So
it.
I agree with you, I don't know if SurveyMonkey can be anonymous, and I agree with you, I don't think it should be anonymous.
We also,
agreeable.
I think we would need names, if nothing else, to make sure that
We got.
we get them from the right person, so.
Yes,
I-
yes.
So I don't know how we get around that, but I don't know how willing people would be to put their name on it.
Well, this is what I feel, if you're not willing to put your name on it, then how valid can your concern be? You know, I mean, we're trying to do something that's going to help you and satisfy your needs.
Yeah,
Right,
I agree, and that said, I don't think we necessarily need to make 25 questions all mandatory. Let people answer the questions they want to answer.
Mhm.
I'd rather get some
Yeah.
feedback than none,
We have to make a few mandatory, probably.
if you want, I mean, yes, your name.
Your name and.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with asking names. They're working for the
But-
public servants.
What I don't know is whether
Basically,
SurveyMonkey is
volunteers.
outright free. 'Cause I only
I
know through my app.
I don't know that
through
either.
work, so-
I also don't know whether open-ended questions like we have here fit for SurveyMonkey.
Yeah,
I think that-
It's allowed, but it's not the best use of it, right? Clearly, it's better when you have, pick one of these
yes,
four
no,
choices,
1
and
through
then you get
5,
beautiful
yeah,
graphs.
strongly
and that kind of
disagree,
stuff.
yeah.
Yeah, 1 through 9 you like, or you'd go back to the same store or the same department.
and interestingly enough, I did hear from some people I interviewed, well, when you have, say to me, well, when you have a public meeting to discuss our answers, please invite us.
Well,
There you go.
we're discussing them now.
Well, we are, but
I
we
didn't invite
haven't really discussed their answers. We haven't gone through and talked about what everybody said about every question.
Oh, so you mean once they're all compiled and we're in a room sitting, talking about the list?
Yeah.
All right.
I asked the library chair, Gail, I said, would you mind if I interview any of the board members? And she said, absolutely not, of course not. Probably get much the same answers, but I didn't know whether we want, at one point we thought of interviewing the chairs and then going to the whole board.
I still think that may be beneficial, but from a time perspective, I mean, just seeing how hard it was to get, I did my interviews over the phone, it was not easy. And, maybe it would be easier to go to their board meeting, that might be the way to do it, so.
I need them right here. I have my appointments right here.
I do too.
Yeah,
Well, except for one. But the others I met right here in this room.
yeah, or the library. But the library's hours aren't always
Well,
conducive to the meeting.
I mean, the meeting before work at 7, or after work at
Right.
7:30 or 8.
What's for here?
No, that's who I've interviewed, everyone I've interviewed so far, I've always interviewed
With the key.
early morning
Yeah.
or
Never
early
get
evening,
time to get the key.
so not middle of the day. So we do it in someone's house, or at,
Oh, there you go. Dunkin' Donuts,
no, what's right here, what in town?
Daybreak,
Yeah.
yeah, that's enough.
I know we had talked about at some point possibly interviewing some employees or department heads. Do you think we're ready for that?
I
or
don't
not
think
yet?
we're ready for that yet.
Okay.
Um,
And you also at some point wanted to go to some of the more impactful boards or significant
Well,
boards or something like that.
at some point, we need to talk to the Board of Selectmen. I'm not sure how that will happen yet, or when. Board of Selectmen, I assume is pretty busy this time of year.
Is what?
Pretty busy this time of year, getting getting the warrant ready, and this is town meeting season.
Yes,
basically.
but we'd make room for you.
You make room for me, okay.
What, is your thought that we would meet them singly, one-on-one? That we would try to do it?
No, my thought would be we would need to do it during one of their meetings. We'd have to ask for a time slot on their agenda, so on a Monday night, when they're meeting. I don't know, maybe half an hour.
That would,
All right,
to interview 5 people
I
in a
agree.
half an hour with these many
Those
questions.
5 people.
Well, yeah, they've all got opinions.
Exactly. I know, the two I did took an hour,
Yeah,
but they were this fairly easy.
yeah, I had one, the more complicated ones were an hour and a half, the
Mhm.
easier ones were an hour.
Yeah.
Well, I would try
And
to,
then they, interestingly enough, people really wanted to talk to me about things, so I'd say it took the survey an hour, but we still talked for an hour and a half or easily.
Yeah, so I mean, I agree though with asking as much as an hour seems like a lot of the board of selectmen. So I think going to selectmen is a good idea, but I'm not sure how to use that 30 minutes.
maybe what we need to do is talk to the Board of Selectmen's chair, like we've been talking to everyone else's chair. And then, when it comes time, if we're gonna do meetings with all the boards, we schedule a meeting with the Board of Selectmen as well. So I wouldn't start necessarily going to that meeting, but if we're gonna have a meeting with them eventually, that's how I think it would happen.
They have working sessions.
That's true. I don't know that they want another working session, but that's true.
But
Well-
sometimes you cancel working
So
sessions.
we absolutely can do a working session like that,
I would
no,
think that
no
would-
question.
Okay.
Well, you know,
But lead time is important also, because people have schedules, so
Right.
sometimes, and you do, so sometimes it's hard to, in a short time frame, but given enough time, we ought to be able to come to an agreement on a date that we can all get together.
Are they usually, your working session is usually Thursday, late afternoon?
We have been, yes,
Okay.
but that doesn't mean that this kind of working session can't change.
Okay.
We can have another one that would match yours. This is important. I'm sure that others on the committee would feel it's important, the board would feel it's important. And in my mind, we'll make time for you.
Okay.
what's interesting is this thing you gave us, the changes,
That's the Topsfield
change in
study.
form of government, Topsfield, Mass, okay. They said that the last group worked for 18 months,
Mhm.
all right, and met frequently with the Board of Selectmen, and/or the Board of Selectmen attended many of the meetings. So thankfully, we have one person from the Board of Selectmen who's been at every meeting, but I'm not saying that they should be at every meeting, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that they had a lot of input in the other one, and it took 18 months to come to any
Right.
conclusion.
And timing wise, I still don't think we're gonna get it done for this town meeting, or a report done in time for this town meeting, or anything to happen at this town meeting. And as far as the involvement or communication with the Board of Selectmen, I think there needs to be some communication as keeping the board up to date. But I was under the belief that they want this to be more independent as opposed
Okay,
to,
yeah.
Mhm.
it doesn't hurt to go in front of the Board of Selectmen, but I think they want us to do some work first before we get to that point.
I agree. I think that we're an independent committee, and
Right, they don't want to shape
looking over
our,
our shoulder.
shape our work necessarily, but maybe they would have done it themselves, but, I think I would rather take the approach of, we do the work first, what we can, and make a decision whether whether or not it was valuable, or at least make a recommendation, preliminary recommendation based on what data we have. I still don't know, it's hard to gather real data for something like this. It's not numbers, it's people's feelings and opinions on how they feel the town government's working, so.
I think those last couple of questions are really the money questions. And that at some point we should codify or represent in some way what those final questions came out to be, you know? More centralization, less centralization. Under the Board of Selectmen, not under the Board of Selectmen. Under the town administrator, not under the town administrator.
Well, it's still a small sample size, but I think every respondent has said, no more centralization, we like it how it is basically. Or I shouldn't say no more centralization, we like it how
We
it
like it
is.
how it is, exactly.
Well, okay, that's not exactly what I heard from the moderator,
Okay,
who gave a balanced view, pros and cons either way, but acknowledged that the moderator thought it would be more efficient to have a stronger town administrator to free up the board's selectmen to focus perhaps or spend more time on longer range planning and allow some of the day-to-day activity be run by the town administrator. That was.
was there any concrete examples of what that might be by any chance? I'm asking because that's the response that is different than what we've been hearing.
So, I don't believe he gave me a specific or concrete response, but,
Okay.
I don't have it with me.
Okay.
And I did hear that while the various boards who were heavy on knowledge thought that they needed to stay very involved and stay focused on the town employee that actually did the day-to-day work and a close relationship with them, I did hear from one board that instead of having a supervisory role, okay, they would like a person that they now appoint, they would like that person to report directly to the town administrator, and they become an advisory board, not a supervisory board.
So policy only, not
Not
supervising?
not supervising, not being there when the other person, when the town employee isn't, not having input to reviews, but not being the entity responsible for doing the review,
Which one was this?
Council on Aging.
So you're talking about from a personnel perspective, reviewing the performance of the director, basically?
Absolutely, yeah.
Kind of makes sense in that particular board.
Yeah.
Council on Aging. It makes a little bit more sense.
Right now, you know, they supervise the Council on Aging director, and they have to, the board decides on all kinds of things that could be decided without the board. Yeah.
And they'd rather,
They would like to retain their advisory capability, deciding policy, working on policy, thinking, making sure that being the advocates for the town's seniors, but not having that supervisory
Mhm.
responsibility.
well, it becomes a lot. It's flip side of the coin, with the library director does everything. And as Gail said, I don't know where we'd be if we didn't have her. She brings everything to them, they okay it, and that's it. She takes care of everything.
Yeah.
And that's, in a way, what the Council of Aging is saying they wish they had. That's what I'm hearing.
Well, I think with the Council on Aging in particular, their charter has expanded so much, they are now so much more active. They have a lot of things that they need to cover, they still, they're becoming much more involved in setting up programs and et cetera, but they still have that human resource part that they need to deal with, taking care of and working with people who come to them for support and et cetera. So it's a very big mandate. It's been getting bigger, partially because they have such an active chairman. They have a very active COA director, and the chairman of the board of their board is very active too. And it's just not a rubber stamp. They're just very involved. So Yeah, I would think there's some different flavors there.
Is that discussion because they don't want to spend the time to do that, or they want to maintain a good relationship with the person they supervise, or, because there's, I mean, if we were to make recommendations for change, we literally have a blank slate. The state legislature can enact, after town meeting approves it, could adopt a home rule petition to basically say, well, the salary of the director of the library will be set by the town administrator with the approval of the board of selectmen or the approval of the board of library trustees. Like you could set it with checks and balances, you could just give it all to one person. I mean, this.
Yeah, well, you have the personnel bylaws you have to deal with too, so.
Right, but it's, I just want to say that, a board can remain in sort of a policy advisory capacity, but still have some ability to approve. So basically, that way you're coming to a consensus. So if you have an overzealous or lackadaisical board, or if you had an overzealous or decision that the board didn't like that was made by town personnel, then you can check. So there's different ways to work it. That's interesting feedback. We haven't had that yet, and so I think that's good.
Yeah, one thing that struck me, and this is really an aside, but I want to say it. If, from the people I talked to, they would tell me about their board and the expertise they have on their board, and I'm sitting there with my little mind doing a calculation. The per hour billing rate of all the people on all these boards, if we ever, as a town had to pay that, it is an unbelievable amount of money. You have architects, you have people who have been in social services for years, you have people with incredible scientific knowledge. If you ever had to pay them their per hour billing rate, it would be,
Oh, forget it, yes, I mean, the head of the historical commission has been it's been the chair for 25 years. She's got a degree in historic preservation, et cetera, and she really is specialized, as you say, and no, we couldn't pay her.
no.
It's, I agree.
You just mentioned that, you said something similar about Bob Moriarty earlier. You said Martha's got tremendous experience on the planning board. Maybe we need to consider suggesting something along the lines of not term limits, but making sure that terms are staggered so we can get experience, bringing people up through the ranks so we can keep the volunteer system thriving. Because if we had all three of those people retire from their activities at once, it's a big loss of institutional knowledge.
Yeah. Well, that was something that people were concerned about, that it's, someone referred to it as the aging of the town volunteers. That people who are volunteering in town are aging, and there's not a lot of backfill from younger people. And you can think of all the reasons why that's true, but there were real concerns by multiple people that it's difficult to get people in their 40s.
Right, to start.
Yeah, coming on board,
Coming on board and learning.
Your 40s have to be the most difficult time of your life with kids and your own personal careers and.
Exactly, and it's crazy, but that's a good point. How do we,
Ask your friends.
Yeah.
how do we get more people to volunteer, to say this is what's available, this is what you can do to help your town? I don't know. I don't have the answer on that at all.
My experience, I've talked to several people. I have, the street I live on, there are people who are active in town government, and I have conversations at the soccer fields, and try to persuade people to become more involved. For the most part, people they'll come to town meeting, but they don't want to get involved. Not in my demographic, at least.
Yeah, and it seems that a younger person is more likely to get involved and there's in the school
Schools.
stuff anyway.
Yeah, and that's what everyone else said too, that they
But-
put their time into the schools and the coaching sports and,
Yeah,
But they do, but that's also volunteer. I mean, I did that, and I think it's a start.
Yeah.
It's a start to say you're volunteering, that you're volunteering for your child, and their education, but you get to know people. It's a start.
Well, that might be, you know, if we're concerned with losing institutional knowledge, I mean, maybe that's a corollary to losing some people in departments who are retiring soon. You know, maybe that's something we include in our report, say, hey, the boards are aging. That might be, no, I mean, that might be a more reason for professional management. It just,
well, yeah, that was that was what Martha was saying.
Boards are aging.
Well, no, what she was saying is, we're coming to the point where we need a professional planner.
Yeah.
so I don't know. So next steps, I don't know if Dave will be joining us this evening.
I would just text my wife to ask,
Yeah.
she had Dave said it, but
No.
no, she hasn't responded.
So we'll get Dave's responses, hopefully next meeting. And you're meeting with the people, so we'll have those. I'm trying to meet still with the board of the party secretary and commissioners. So we'll have that. So maybe we'll have some more information, but maybe the next agenda includes an agenda item of what comes next. You know, with regard to the questions, with regard to a survey, with regard to more interviews with full boards at their meetings, or inviting them to come here.
Do we think we have the first round of interviews pretty well under wraps, or I could take some more, because I don't have any lined up.
I
more
think
people?
so. I don't have my phone number.
Here,
I'll listen to Mark.
here's right here.
But so let me start from Board of Health we've done, Conservation Commission we've
Yeah.
done, Board of Appeals we're going to do this week, Council on Aging we've done.
Mhm.
Housing Authority, was that,
Somebody had
Was that
housing
Dave?
authority.
I thought
Dave.
Dave had housing.
Yeah.
Dave has the Housing
He
Authority.
sent us a message that he wasn't gonna be able to do that till February.
Board of Water Commissioners,
That was you.
done, thank you. Parks and Rec, pending, that's me. Board of Road Commissioners was Phil Knowles as well, so he's Board of Road Commissioners Chair and Board of Water Commissioners Chair. Board of Assessors,
Yes,
to
this
be
week.
done, Board of Library Trustees done, Planning Board done. Selectmen, not done, Moderator,
Done.
done. So maybe I need to call the Chair of the Board of Selectmen,
Who's that?
Mark Lyons,
Mark Lyons.
and have a conversation with him.
Yeah, so what you had said a few minutes ago was that maybe you'd want to have a working session at a mutually convenient time, or maybe you'll check with the board, the Board of Selectmen, about
Yeah.
how to move
So
forward.
I'm gonna get his feelings for the questions and for process moving forward.
Do that.
And then I think we need to reevaluate once we get all the responses.
Yeah. And Roberta, I did like your idea. It might be nice if somehow, I don't know how to do this easily, but it might be nice if we could somehow aggregate the answers we've heard from those last couple of questions, you know. Might be nuts. Again, as you said, we'll figure out next time what the next step is, but that, I think it'd be an interesting next step is to see not just my 4, and you would see not just your 6, but we all see the aggregated responses of everybody for those last couple of questions. It might be interesting.
I think that if we went in front of the boards as a whole and asked for 20 minutes, 20, 30 minutes at a time, I think we need to look at different questions. Not throw out all of them, but I think we need to shrink it a little bit and
Yeah, I think, and I think we're to the point where we've heard the
So we'll
answers.
assign that to Dave then.
Dave's in, volunteered.
There we are,
Perfect.
Dave volunteered,
Wrong
thank you,
place
Dave.
at the wrong time.
I'll text somebody that you're not there.
I think now that we've heard answers people have given, there's a lot of common ground, so you could probably boil them down, you know.
Yes, yes, and as you say, the last four, or last few
Yeah,
questions,
yeah.
whatever, about centralization and,
Yeah, and then, you know, one question like, we have multiple questions where we say, do you have enough administrative support? We say it in several different ways, you know, do you feel your board has enough administrative support? And then we have a lot of things about how you coordinate and interact with people in town, you know, simply, does your board have good interactions with other parts of town government?
right.
You know, just
Yeah, I
make
think that
it,
we
make it
could-
more simple, yeah, tighten it up.
Tighten them up, and, so then, going in front, it's not an onerous, the boards aren't feeling like, we gotta answer 25 questions.
Well, if we asked for 20 minutes and we could come up with 5 questions and we could limit the discussion of each to 4 minutes, I mean, I think you could probably,
And say, thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you.
Great, yeah.
yeah.
But you probably get different,
Well, from a time perspective, I don't know that we want to go to each board,
Yeah,
especially depending on how frequently they meet.
well, that is an issue because some of them only meet once a month and some of them
Right.
have done their meetings for the,
right,
but I think the, yeah.
That's why I was thinking survey monkey might be a good alternative, but I think you raise a good point. I don't know if that's free or not. I don't know if you need to have an account and need to look into that.
do you know anything about Survey Monkey?
A little bit, yeah.
Okay.
I have
What's it cost?
there's a slight cost to it, yeah, over a certain number of users. I think you get a trial period. But it's a great way to do stuff. If you get a lower hit rate than if you barrage people with emails saying, I want to meet you to talk about this. You get which is a lower hit rate than if you say, I want to meet you and I'll buy you a beer if you answer these questions. Or I'll take you to the bake shop or whatever the other place is down
I haven't had to bribe anybody.
I didn't do
there.
that.
I think
They didn't even have to bribe us with the beer or the answers to join this committee.
Yeah, we didn't even
they
get
got us
beer
right
for
where they
that.
want us, yeah, they're like
Exactly.
analyzing pictures of so you guys, sorry to be late again. Are you talking about tweaking the questions a little bit?
A little bit. We were just, I think, wrapping up discussion about what the responses have been so far. Have you talked to anyone?
Yeah, I got 2 people and I've got a third one scheduled.
Do you want to tell us what your 2 people, who they were and what their responses were?
Yeah, Joe Geller on the rec committee and Joe Geller on the rail trail committee, and I have Dick Cullinan on the housing committee scheduled. But he's in Florida, so we're meeting on February 9th.
Okay.
And some questions are, not applicable, but I agree with Roberta saying, and that's actually a surveying strategy, asking the same questions a couple of different ways to get at the answer. But there's a lot of questions.
There are.
Yeah.
And I think the consensus is it might be overwhelming for some folks when they first see it.
Yeah, I would agree. What we could do is see where the people we've asked, anything that's not applicable, maybe we just take that off. This isn't meant to be
Yeah. I think we're going to need to get all the responses and then probably sit down and refine the questions for expanding the audience, the people we ask the questions of. So I don't think we're there yet, but Libby's got 2 interviews this week. I'm trying to get one more. You have another one coming up. I guess I have 2 more. And so, I think it makes sense to circle back around to the questions after we have all the responses.
Yeah, I think we should set a date. I'd like to do my third one if we do at least 3 each, and then it would be, in a perfect world, give this to a survey methodology type person and say, cull it down or see where it's applicable and not applicable.